Hey, Gloria.
Hi.
You're the only one on today. How are you doing so far?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good. So we can go ahead and just get started with you. How are you feeling?
Um, I guess I wasn't even ready. I was just gonna listen for a little bit. Um, yeah, let me go outside because I'm in the classroom right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna participate via listening. Can you hear me? Is that too loud out
Yeah,
here?
I can hear you fine. Yeah. Hold on one second, Gloria.
Okay. Um, mhm.
Okay, sorry about that. I had someone
No, you're
texting.
good.
So
You're
yes,
good.
it's just me and you. You get
Okay.
all the attention right now. So
Oh, Lord.
anything to report in terms of a celebration to get started?
I think that's let's see here. There was a situation happened like a couple of days ago. I had surgery 2 years ago, and my insurance was supposed to pay for it, and we got a bill for $46,000.
Mm,
And so my husband was really upset. And normally in the past, he would be upset and he would continually harp on me and be like, why is this? Why is that? Why this? Why that? And then I would like retreat and I wouldn't, because I didn't know the answers, and he expected me to know what's going on. I'm like, I know as much information as you do. I have no idea, but then it would be a constant thing. Anyways, he was upset that first day. And then he said, okay, you need to contact your insurance representative and say this and say that. Have you contacted? And so I was contacting when he was saying, and then the other day he said, you need to find out right now what's going on. I don't want it to affect our credit. Da da da. I said, okay. And normally what I would do at that point, I would be like, I wouldn't let him know the email that I created because I didn't want to be criticized about what it said. And since he already told me what he wanted me to say, I kind of like use his points but I use my words to express to the representative what was going on. And I read it to him and he goes, oh, okay, that sounds good. I guess that's the best that you can do for now, and you're doing all that you can do. And I'm like floored, like there's no more. There's like no criticizing of how I
yeah.
wrote the email, and kind of like, so I think that was, for me, that was a success, because
Yeah.
in the past it would be more harper, like kind of like demanding, and yeah,
All
so that was
right.
good. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. That's awesome. That is a celebration because it sounds like he's being more aware of, his old patterns. So that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the struggle that I'm having right now is lesson 5, and it's where you bring up a resentment, right? And then you express what you need, and what he needs, I'm not authentically like wanting to give him what he's needing, and we're at a standstill
Okay.
with that. And he's not asking for anything. He's not asking for anything like like a lot. I'm just like, like, I don't want to give that to you.
Right.
And so, and
Are
and
you
I
able
think,
to share what it is he's asking for, that you guys are going through the lesson together?
yeah, he's just asking for fidelity. He wants me to be completely 100% like focused on the relationship and focused on him.
Okay.
And I'm just like, like, again, I
Like
think I'm
right
just
now, he's asking for, obviously, when we're working on the marriage, right? We have to
right.
like be true to the process as we're going through it.
Hmm.
Is he talking about
Hmm.
that, or is he talking about,
Forever and ever, right? That's kind of like that's how I'm understanding it,
okay,
like forever and ever. And
like
I'm
he's
like,
wanting like a promise of y'all being together forever?
I guess he just wants that fidelity for, like if we're going to move on with this marriage. I'm not saying I don't want that fidelity. I think I'm still in the process of, do I want to be married? You know what I mean? And I think that like, and I've been going back and forth with this for like, since July, I think. Well, since the beginning, really,
Okay.
and I'm not sure, like right now there's fidelity. Right now it's just him, but I'm not sure that even that's what I want, even after all the changes that I've seen,
Okay.
you know? And I think that that's kind of like where I'm afraid to let him know that. I'm
Okay.
kind of like, mm-hmm,
So for you, it's like, I can't authentically, from an honest place, tell you that I still want that. Not I still, I can't tell you from an honest place where I sit right now that I want to stay in this marriage forever,
mm-hmm,
you know? And so I can't say that because I'm working through and still processing all of this.
mm-hmm.
So,
I think, yeah, I think that I think it's great that we're working on this. I think it's like, it's amazing. It's helping with our communication. But the needs that he has, that he's asking from me, like, to be able to touch him and to kiss him and to, be more loving, it doesn't come like it does. It's not something that I'm desiring to do. Like, ooh, I want to do this, and ooh, I want to do that for him. It used to be, and I was looking at pictures, and I'm like, I used to want to do that, and now it just seems like a trap, like, come to ceremony with me so that you can tell me you love me and we can forever be together. You know what I mean? Um, tell me that you want me and nothing will ever come between us,
yeah,
Um, and those are the things that I wanted back then, you know?
right.
Um, but now I'm just not sure exactly like where I'm like honestly at, you know?
Okay. Is
Mm-hmm.
it that you're struggling with, um, are you struggling around
Hello.
hey, Sarah,
Hi.
are you struggling? Ned is running errands. We found out, earlier this morning, Ned's mom got rushed to the hospital. She just
Oh
had,
no.
her second COVID shot and went into a reaction and went and has started having seizures. So he's running errands and we're going to have to like go to the hospital later. So that's why he's not on the call. So I just want to let y'all know that. So please keep her in your prayers.
And sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks. So what I was going to say, ask you, Gloria, is it that you feel, are you having a hard time with the resentment and moving into the forgiveness aspect of things? Or are you truly like in a place of like, even though there have been some changes, even though you guys are working on communication and the skill set and the tools and everything, is it that you're more in a place of, I still don't know if this is something that I want for sure?
Mm-hmm.
Which where do you feel?
It's in the sense of like, I don't know if this is really what I want.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think that the scary part of it is that because we have been together for so long, that we do have a home, and it's a nice home. Finally, we have a home. Finally, we have things. Finally, we're like settled in that way. So that security, right? But at the same time, I don't think it's fair. If I don't think he deserves someone who isn't, and I'm gonna cry, but like, but that isn't that, like, you know, willing to give him what he needs. And it's not like a lot of things that he needs. It's what a human needs, right? But it doesn't come from me. It's not coming from me. And that, to me, I think that's like the sad part. And it's not fair, right? But I'm wondering, is that just like something that like I'm struggling with because of like the past? Like I like you said, I really don't know. I just know that it doesn't it's no me nace means like it's not born in me to do the things that he's asking.
It's not what you,
like it doesn't come from me. It's not born from me. No me nace, it's in Spanish. It just means it doesn't, like, you know, it doesn't
you
come from
don't
me.
feel like it's not something that is genuinely, authentically coming from you. Is that what you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like to want to touch him and to want to
Right.
caress him and to
Right.
want to, be
Right.
all of that. Mm-hmm.
Right.
But
I
I'm
mean,
wondering,
all of the physical intimacy, you know, comes when the physical intimacy, and that's not just sex, right? It's touch, it's hugs, it's kisses, it's all that physical affection. That is just a byproduct of a really strong emotional connection. And for women, if we don't have that emotional connection with our partners, it's going to be, some women still do these things out of a sense of duty, as a wife, as a woman, but that's not a healthy place, right, to give physically and sexually from. It's not a duty. It's something that, you know, comes from deep connection, right? So and some people do have a deep emotional connection and they don't have a lot of sex, and sometimes have to really be intentional around working on that. But that's not the place I hear you in. You know, the place that I hear that you're in is that you're still, you know, trying to figure out what it is you want. And you know, you're trying to figure out what's going on for you mentally. Just figure yourself out right now is what it sounds like. And I wouldn't expect at this point in the game, when you guys are still working through stuff, for you to feel like you want to be all lovey-dovey and touchy and feely and all those things. That's just not where you guys are at in the process. So that doesn't really make any sense to me. That, you know, I understand that that's the stuff Jeremy wants, but that, in a sense, that's also his stuff. Like he has stuff to work through around that whole, you know, because I know the backgrounds and everything like that. That's some of his abandonment stuff and stuff that he needs to work through. People who are abandoned, people who are neglected as young children have trauma around that, right? So we're very hungry. We're very hungry for food. We're very hungry for touch. We're very hungry for attention, all those things. So, you know, I feel like, knowing what I know about Jeremy, I feel like he's love dependent, love addicted, all those things, right? And codependent. And so that's his stuff to work on in terms of him needing all this from you right now, because you can't give all that to him right now, right? Like that would be possibly a boundary for you. Like that's just not where I'm at. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not to say that in the future you won't feel that way towards him again, depending on how you guys work through this. And at the end of it, you may be like, you know what, this is awesome. Yes. And you guys reconnect in that way. But the emotional connection pieces have to come first. You know what I mean?
I think, yeah. And I hear you. And I feel like in the past, I knew that he needed all these things and I would give it to him, right? But when there was hurts, when we started having like really deep hurts in the past, then I started like not wanting to do that, right? Because I'm like, no. And right now where I'm at, I'm like, I see it. And as a wife, I should want to do that, but I don't want to do it.
Right.
You see what I mean? And so I don't want to be in a place where I'm having to do something because I have to, crossing my boundary, and again,
Right.
being in the same situation,
Then you don't
not
do
being
it.
authentic to myself.
Right. Then you don't do it.
Mhm.
And you explain why. These are the things to
Okay.
communicate about. These are the things to be open about. Like I love you, right? I understand that you have these needs and wants, but for me right now, my boundary is that I can't give you those things right now, and you can do a feedback wheel on it,
Okay.
you're not, it's not your duty to violate your own boundaries just so
Right.
he
Right.
gets,
And I'm tired.
he gets, it's like, it's like a suck to you. It's like draining to you. Right. And so, because Jeremy has to learn, we all have to learn, it's not just Jeremy, to give ourselves what we didn't get as children growing up. Because it's why we have all these needs. Oh, I need this. It's insatiable. It's never going to be enough. You've got to learn how to give it to yourself, right? We all have to do that, whatever it is. And so, yes, I understand in marriage, we have physical needs and there's fidelity in marriage. And oh, here he is. And so, marriage assumes fidelity. And, but you guys aren't you're not in a healthy place, emotionally connected. So those kinds of needs, just that, the physical, reconnecting physically and sexually, it's like the last step of this whole process is what I'm saying. It really, really is really getting into that and diving into that. But what I was going to say too is like, when you feel the guilt around it, or you feel bad, or you get emotional about it, because it's like you said, it's not fair to him to go without. I feel like that would be an appropriate thing. And it's an appropriate thing for you to feel, like, there's a healthy way of feeling sad that you can't give him something that he wants or needs or whatever. But I don't want you to beat yourself up over it and go down into like the one down toxic shame place. I feel like, once you guys have worked through this some more and you've done more work together, and you're in the place of like really knowing what you want, whether it's to stay in the marriage or whether it's to leave the marriage, I feel like then it would be a more appropriate thing to go, I'm so sad that I can't give this to you. I don't want to give this to you. You deserve someone who wants to and can, give you what it is you need. Because by the end of it, Jeremy might come to the conclusion and realize that he does have to start giving himself more of the love and the nurturing that he, missed out on as a kid. Like, that's not your job to give him that. He's got to learn to do that for himself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So, do you have any questions at all? Any other questions?
I guess that was just my thing is like, I'm not, like, it doesn't, I don't want to do the simple things that he's asking. And so feeling like, okay, that's crossing my boundary. Right. And learning to kind of like take care of myself.
Yeah.
Instead of like, like always taking care of like his needs, making sure that he feels safe, making sure that he feels comfortable and all of that, because I know that's what he needs, but I'm not like I guess I'm not willing to like start crossing my boundaries again to be in that place of the one down,
Yeah.
always having to like take care of him,
Right.
you know?
And I think that that's okay. And I think that's healthy.
Okay.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong about saying no.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. You know?
I guess that's my thing is like, I'm not really like, I'm really ready to tell him, you know. I think this is the first time I've said it. Like, I don't know if, you know, like, do I really, you know, I don't think I've told Monika either. I haven't.
Yeah. All you can do, Gloria, is just be honest. Like, the more honest you are, the better, no matter what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a way to be honest that isn't like, being honest is not mean. Being direct, it's not mean. You know, it's just the way someone takes what it is you say, as long as you're literally coming from a place of like, you know, love, you know, and honesty and sincerity, like that's all that matters. Like, you know, you saying, I just don't know where I am in the scheme of like this marriage and wanting to stay in it forever. I just don't know the answer to that. So I can't, from a place of honesty, tell you that, you know, I'm going to be in this marriage forever, because I don't know the answer to that, you know. And if he's like, oh, I want fidelity, I mean, I think the better question is not about fidelity, but it's like, you know, I don't know. I just don't. If you don't even know that you are in a place, if you want to stay in the marriage, I don't even think fidelity is the right question. You know what I'm saying? Like, does he know that you're not sure about the marriage?
No, I told you, this is the first time that I'm like, oh, okay. Like it just,
okay,
you know,
okay,
like,
okay.
oh.
So I can see why he would ask about the fidelity question then. It's like almost like, you know, is that like a value of yours or like it is for me or whatever. So, yeah, I think
and of course it would be. Of course it would be if I was like, yeah, this is it. Like, you're the only one, you know. But I'm like, I don't know. I'm just thinking, is this a little too late? You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of like thinking like this work could have been done 10, 15, 20, 15 years ago.
No, it couldn't. This work couldn't have been done 15, 20 years ago, because there was no one teaching this stuff that long ago. You know what I'm saying? It just was not.
And not only that, you guys weren't in a position where you would have been able to receive this type of help anyway. You have to go through experiences and situations that get you to a point where at least you get frustrated or tired enough to start wanting to effectively change things. You understand? And that just doesn't happen. That depends on the person and the individual and their upbringing, their exposure to the dysfunction that they experience from their parents, how that's modeled. All these things become factors into what shapes our readiness to do work on ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, so Kelly makes a good point.
So I was just going to catch you up to speed really quickly. Gloria was just saying that they were on lesson 5, where they basically share with one another like what their needs are, and they're asking for what they need. And one of the things that Jeremy is asking is, I need your pledge of fidelity towards me. And she's like, I can't, in good conscience, from a place of authenticity and honesty, give him that, because I don't even know if she's still in the place like, I don't even know if I want to stay in this marriage. Even with the positive changes that I've seen, I don't know if it's something I want to stay in yet. I'm still on the fence, you know, I don't know. And so I can't tell him that. And then also he wants all this touch and affection and all this kind of stuff. And she's just like not feeling it. So she's just not, she feels like it's crossing her own boundary to give him all this physical intimacy when, you know, she just does not feel that for him right now.
Yeah. So have you communicated that to him?
No, I'm communicating that with you guys today. I said I didn't tell anybody. You know, I wasn't even going to talk about it, but there's nobody on the call.
So she went ahead and talked.
Oh, went ahead and opened up. Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of questions. I mean, one I have for you is, and you can ask yourself this question, is what's keeping you on the fence?
I don't think that we're on the same path that he's anymore as when we were younger. I think that when we were younger, we were on a different path. And he's a great guy when he, you know, I mean, like on the side of like, you know, he's a good provider and, you know, he loves his family and, you know, he's on a spiritual path. I just don't feel like I'm on a spiritual path. You know, I just feel like I'm kind of like, I kind of want to be wild. I know it sounds crazy. I'm like a teenager. I'm done being of service to other people. Let me be service to me. Let me like take care of me. Let me, you know, figure out what it is that I want to do. And I'm not saying I'm not going to be spiritual, but
So do you not feel like you can experience that side of yourself with Jeremy? Is that what you're saying?
You know, like, you know, the way that like our path is like with ceremonies is like, you don't drink, you don't party, we don't go out, you know, it's like, it's more of like a, you know, like a sober life, you know, and I've been living a sober life for 40, you know, for a long time, you know,
You're like, I'm tired of being sober.
Drugs.
Say that again.
She's tired of being
sober. Of being a good girl. I'm tired of being a good girl is what it is, you know.
So
I promise you partying is not that fun. It's not.
The other part of this though, like I get the explorative aspect of you wanting to experience life, especially through this different side of yourself you have never experienced. I get that. You know, there's a responsibility that goes along with all the actions we choose though, right? So we have to be able to own up to that aspect of what it means for me to be wild, you know, wild too, right? Because you know, the solo life out here is, you know, as much as people think it's adventurous, you know, I hear more people who are saddened by the fact that they're single than not. So I'm not encouraging you not to explore yourself. I'm just saying I want you to consider all the aspects of this because there's so many people who think the grass is greener, right? You know, and it's not necessarily that so much that I'm hearing from you as much as it is that there's a part of yourself you've just never explored, right? And you felt like you've never had the chance to really explore and get to know, you know. And when I hear you talk, it sounds to me like a lot of this isn't so much about Jeremy as much as it is about your need for a level of freedom. And it's just based on some parameters that have been created for you for the past 20, 30 years that you felt confined, right? The reason why I ask, are you able to do this? Could you possibly do this and explore this with Jeremy is because you have control over the explorative aspect of yourself and the side of yourself, right? And you can have a conversation.
I guess it really depends on what it is she's wanting to
explore. Right. So that's my whole point. Yeah. So if it's just like if the question
it really isn't crazy. No, it really isn't crazy. It's just to be able to go out with girlfriends and be able to go to a bar if they're going drinking, and hanging out. Exactly. Right. And not because okay, I am the preacher's wife, I can't do that. Right. And then just being able to travel without him, being able, and you're right, it's like being confined to being like that good girl, that good wife, that good, and before we had children when we were young, so just always staying home, making sure you can't go, you gotta take care of kids, okay. And so it was just focused more like on the family, and, you know, and the opportunities to be able to go out were basically for him. Right. And so, yeah, I said, this is kind of what I want. And he's like, no, it sounds like you want to be single, you know? So we haven't come to like a you know, like a point where we can say, okay, that is okay for you to do that. It's okay for me to do this.
It sounds like you I think you've described it correctly. Like your paths are kind of splitting, right? You started out a certain way, and his is kind of moving more towards this very centered, you know, modeling.
Spiritual again, like very centered, like you said, you know.
Which is fine, which is great. You know, that's fine for him. But it's just like, if you're not in that
mindset.
Yeah, if you're not of the idea, the mindset of like, you know, I don't want to be, essentially you say, I don't want to be a pastor's or a preacher's wife. You know, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to have people look at me because I'm married to you and they think I should behave a certain way that I don't want to behave. I don't feel like it's necessary. So I don't see why you couldn't have that conversation with him though, you know, because I mean, like right now, when he's talking about, when you say, I want to explore myself, you know, that could be, you know, you're a guy, you can take that a million different ways, right? So if it becomes more around that aspect of what it is that you really don't want to experience anymore, and don't really want to have eyes on you, looking to you to as a model of righteousness and what have you, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, people, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people who've been involved in religion and to, you know, at that level, who they get tired of it becomes very exhaustive to try to hold the frame. And, you know, I mean, it's probably why there's so much infidelity within, you know, these types of situations. You understand what I'm saying? Because people they don't feel like they can ever be themselves, express themselves, be honest with themselves, right? And then they find themselves sneaking and just trying to get a little bit of, you know, freedom they can get from this thing, you know. So I understand what you're saying. I get it. But I just, you know, I want you to ask those questions of yourself, so that when you choose to have a conversation, if you choose to have a conversation with Jeremy.
Could I explore this side of myself and be with Jeremy also? Yeah.
Honestly, would he be able to understand, you know, why I am no longer interested in being this type of person anymore,
right? And it's like, what does fidelity, right, mean to him? Is it just the sexual aspect of it? Is it I need you to, you know, I need fidelity around all the aspects of our spirituality that goes beyond sex, you know, I need, you know, a commitment for you not to drink, for you not to party, not to go out with girlfriends. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is his idea of fidelity around that? You know, what is it that he wants you committed to, right? He may be okay with you exploring, you know, other sides of yourself, you know, and still be in the marriage, right? If that's even something that you want, right? Like,
so I feel like it's just something, I think you just need to get really clear and honest with what it is, what it looks like for you to feel free, feel freedom from this part of your soul and this part of your being that has existed for a really long time, that you have finally, you're no longer interested in being that person any longer, right? But it also means that you also have to think about and consider, what does this other part of me look like too, right? So you have to, you know, you want to ask yourself those questions, because if I were, yeah, I'm a guy, right? And if my wife were saying, and this is why I asked the question, like, what is it that's keeping you on the fence? Really, you know, is it that, because you say that Jeremy's doing the work, you're seeing improvement, in his behavior overall, right? You know, he's doing it steadfastly, so he's committed. And for you, what's your experience been with respect to, you know, the modules and the work, the aspect of introspection and all that kind of stuff? What have you revealed to yourself about yourself that you feel like has benefited you in the relationship?
I think just the basic thing of like holding on to resentment and creating holding on to the same old story, being able to like let that go and be like recognize like, okay, that's something from the past that's affecting how I'm thinking now. And then also that I have my own struggles and things that I need as well. However, I think that it's really about like I need to stop wanting to. That's my work. Stop wanting to please another person because they're expecting me to do something. Right? That's the mold that I need to break out of, you know. And so it's because I'm betraying myself. As I realize, like I'm betraying myself if I'm not authentic, you know.
Yes. I can understand that. So
yeah.
So I guess you just, you know, again, you have some things to consider with respect to your marriage with Jeremy, and what that looks like in terms of what your true happiness.
Right, because in a way, I kind of feel like, okay, when this is all over, are we going to go back to the same thing? You know, and here we're committed to, now we've, you know, made new agreements and now we're back to the same old story, right? After we've graduated the program, right? Is it like going to go back? I think I'm like waiting for like the shoe to fall kind of thing, you know?
Well, you know, that's the part where, you know, and that's why it's so important when I asked, like, if Jeremy's doing the work, right? And he's delving into the aspects of himself, you know, the dysfunction, all the childhood states and all those kind of things, right? And he's working on himself, all right? And he's effectively working through dealing with those parts that have created dysfunction in the marriage. And it's equally as important for you to do the same thing, have the same experience. So your concern about the shoe dropping if neither one of you were willing to commit to changing what has been your prior experience relationally with each other, I would see some concern. But the other part of this is that your trepidation, what I hear is, you know, I don't think it's so much about, when I'm listening to you, so much about Jeremy. It sounds more like yourself being able to, you have to have firm boundaries. And it sounds like the problem is, that's been the problem, is that you have a problem establishing your boundaries and keeping them, you know? So that is really
and following through.
Yeah, it's really your work to do. So the shoe would drop if you're not able to hold your boundary. It would be on you, kind of. So don't think about it so much about Jeremy. Jeremy has to do, as long as you do what you need to do for yourself, that's probably the most important thing. You know, this is when we get into that thing where we're like, you know, handling your business helps your partner effectively handle their business, right? You can't handle their business, right? You got to handle yours.
Right.
That's all you can do. And when both of us are doing that, it's a great dance, right? You have healthy boundaries. Because I'm working on myself and have worked on myself, I can respect those, right? So you don't ever feel the need to have to move into a dysfunctional stance with me where you're going, my old pattern is kicking up where I feel like I need to caretake more than I should, right? And you cross your own boundary, right?
Right.
You got me? So that's, you have to really
Yeah.
focus on yourself and keep yourself in a healthy state.
Okay.
And your practices so that you can stay within understanding that this is healthy for me, right? And you don't feel shame or bad if someone tries to do that, you still don't, right? You don't take that in. That's not yours. You know, that's where that boundary is, right? You recognize when something is dysfunctional, and you can deal with something when somebody says something to you that is maybe you can consider, you may be able to take that in, right? You hear, you go, well, I might be able to work on that, right? I can take that in and deal with it, but you also have to be able to discern what is yours to deal with and what is your partner's to deal with. And sometimes that requires a conversation, but in those moments where you know from experience and past experiences that your partner is doing this and they've just kind of lost their way momentarily, that's your job, where you have to stay as, very mature, and help them understand and recognize that that's what they're dealing with in that moment. But you can only do that by staying mature yourself. Okay, you can't get triggered by the triggered person and expect things to, work out.
Right.
Well.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I do.
Piece the pattern. You don't want to do that,
So I think that that's really what it comes down to, is like, what it boils down to is, can I keep my boundaries? Can I follow through? Because I haven't been strong enough to do that.
Right.
And
and that's what it sounds like you're fearful of, just in when you go, yeah, we're going to do all this work, and then it's going to be the same way. And I'm just like, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be after you both of you work, because, and remember this also, Gloria, you don't stop. Just because you're not in the program any longer, or, you've graduated to the graduate group, and you're not, effectively getting on, joining the calls and doing all these things. This is why you have practices, so that you can continue to build yourself up and continue to have healthy boundaries for yourself, right? It becomes a practice. It's a way of life, and you have to look at it that way, because that's the only way you're going to be able to maintain, up until you're habituated to all these things, these practices, and they're so habituated you don't even have to think about it anymore. And it is the way that you live your life, right? You do have firm boundaries. You don't have to think about having a firm boundary or healthy boundary, right?
Right.
You're that person, So it's just through the practice of it, the continuous practice of it, that we become, remember the vision in the beginning, and remember the person who we say, hey, I have to be this person to live in that vision. I have to be that person, right? So you have to develop that character and that person by creating practices, rituals that you do daily. And when you first start, the difficulty of like dealing with all of this in the beginning, right? But by a certain time frame, because you're so habituated to doing it, it's not going to feel like a struggle to maintain. And I think that's kind of what you're feeling a little. I'm hearing you're a little fearful about too, is just like kind of falling and not quite being able to get back up from a place where, if you take a step back, it's just like, okay, can we just turn that around very quickly and start taking 2 steps forward again, and I think as long as you're continuing your practice, you'll be able to do that. Okay. But you have to get really settled within yourself about feeling good about what you're doing, in the way of setting yourself up for success by establishing healthy boundaries for yourself. Right now, when I hear you, it's almost like you don't feel quite comfortable with it. And you're even questioning whether, if it's healthy or not, because maybe of how Jeremy is responding. But this is where, when you see Jeremy respond a certain way, and then if you hear the old narrative, like we've been here before and I've seen this before, and Jeremy's responding this way, and it makes me uncomfortable, because it feels like if I do this, I'm going to overstep my own boundary, right? And that's unhealthy, right? So that awareness is the thing that keeps you, because it's healthy for you and it's healthy for Jeremy, for you to maintain your boundaries. It's not just for you, it's for him too. right?
Okay.
Because it helps him effectively stay within the parameters of his boundaries also, and recognize them too, you know. And this is why when you guys have conversations about requests and what have you, and you have agreements, okay, they're based on your ability to effectively do something and what you feel like you can't do, right? Or what you feel like is healthy and what you feel like is unhealthy. And having that conversation and establishing those boundaries through that dialogue is what it leaves fewer questions. So when you do respond a certain way, it's like, well, we've had this. I understand you're having a hard time dealing with that right now, but we've had this talk and we agreed upon it, you know. And it's important for me to maintain this boundary for myself, because this is the thing that, you know, for me in the past has created resentment, disconnected me from me, have me forget, you know, right? You know, so that's why I'm saying you have to really consider all of that, because this is why it's so healthy for you, because it makes you feel better and it makes you better equipped to deal with certain situations that in the past you would fall prey to and then relapse into old patterns of behavior. And that's what you're trying to not do anymore, right?
Right.
Okay. Does that help?
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It does. Yeah, it does. I'll work on those for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know it's a lot, you know, and I know, you know, given you guys, you know, situation also, there's a lot to consider and think about. So I know it's not easy. So just hang in there, okay?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate you sharing too, Gloria. I'm glad you opened up a little bit today. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, there's nobody here, but sorry it took so long.
Yeah, I know. I mean, but people still they still look at it though, and after it's posted and everything. So it's still very courageous of you to open up. I appreciate it. Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah. You didn't know these get posted? Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. Oh.
Look at you, you're so crazy. All right. So has no, Sarah hasn't spoken. Okay. Hi, Sarah. How are you? Did you actually have anything you wanted to respond?
I don't know, I really was like, not really. I mean, this week was like, it was like a big week for me with Mike moving out last weekend, and sort of how I was able to handle that like a champ. Pretty much, I feel like I couldn't have done any better in how I handled it. I did everything that Monika told me to do and to not do.
What did she ask you to do?
Well, I mean, specifically, we had talked right before. Well, so he moved out, but then he left his dog, our dog, but mostly his dog, with me for a couple more days while he got everything sort of situated at his new place. And then he was going to come get the dog. And so he came on Tuesday to get the dog. And, you know, I talked to Monika right before then, and I, you know, her advice to me, I think, was just to be like, you know, don't mention anything about the future, because that's kind of like one of the mistakes I was making before, was telling him, like, basically in a crazy psycho way, telling him that, you know, a year from now we are going to be back together and he's going to be eating his words and stuff, and that wasn't really the smartest thing to do or say. So
do you understand why she asked that of you in terms of like responding in that way?
Oh, for sure. I mean, and I can see it when I do stuff like that, it just adds so much pressure that's unneeded. And, you know,
controlling also.
Controlling. Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's one of the big reasons our relationship was not going well in the first place, was my need to kind of control everything. So yeah, not to say anything about the future. I'm allowed to have hope for the future, but I can't really share that with him just yet. And
right,
to be sort of like, unemotional, like really to kind of convey the fact that I'm okay, and that, and she's like, just say, don't try to, hug or say I love you or anything. She was like, just say good luck. And I did that. He put the dog in the car, and I literally was just, and he got in the car, and I was just like, all right, well, good luck. And I I didn't have any sort of like tears or anything. And it wasn't like I was holding it back or anything. And then I walked back in the garage and, pushed the button for the door to go down. And I kind of looked back at him when the garage door was closing, and he was like looking at me. And I don't know if it was just like a look of confusion, because this was definitely not normal Sarah behavior.
It probably was a little confusing for him,
yeah.
but I think in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he may have anticipated the old Sarah to show up and have to, go into defense and all these types of things, and you didn't do that. So I think you did a great job. That's awesome.
Yeah, because old Sarah, when she went through breakups, was, really the kind of like just really, it's the only way I describe it is almost like psychotic, where it's like almost like getting down on my knees and pleading, like, don't leave me and don't do this to me, like I can't live without you, and like blowing up their phone and driving by their house. It's not super, it's not like unembarrassing to say that out loud, but it's true.
Yeah.
And and I was not gonna behave like that this time, because not only does it make me feel bad afterward, it just causes them to lean out more than they already are. And so yeah, I think I did a great job, and so much so that I got a text from him 30 minutes later, asking me if I would be willing to take care of the dog in a few weeks, when he's headed out, he's going on a fishing trip or whatever. And I thought that was a big step, because when we had talked about it before, he sort of set this, he was like, I don't know if that's really wise, because, I was going to have my brother come over and do it, because, it's going to be fresh for us. And I just don't know how that's going to be with us, like seeing each other and stuff. And so for him to do that, reach out to me right after, asking if I wanted to take the dog for that week, which I wanted to. And I thought that was pretty telling, that he was like, hey, she's not psychotic. She's appears to be okay. So
we're dealing with this, well right now, in his eyes.
Yeah. It was a little weird. Like I was out when he was actually moving. Like I was not here. I was at my mom's house, and then I was at a friend's house. And then when I came back, once I knew he was gone on Saturday night, it was a little surreal, kind of walking in the apartment, seeing like all this stuff gone, like the guest room like completely empty, because that's where he kept a lot of his stuff. The garage empty, things like that. It was a little bit surreal, and I did end up, like, I think, calling my mom and crying to her for like about an hour or something. But
I think that's normal.
Yeah, no, and overall, like I feel like I've just been doing really, really good, because I have small waves of like this sadness where I feel like I have to cry. But it's like maybe 30 minutes a day. And compared to my last big breakup 10 years ago, when I was completely unfunctional and moved in with my parents for 6 months because I was so sad and I didn't want to be alone.
Yeah.
I think I'm like really proud of myself, because when I feel those waves coming on, I deal with them, but when it's time to move on, I do the tapping, I do meditation, I do all the stuff that I need to do to calm myself down, and it's been working, so it's good.
Good. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
And don't beat yourself up about the waves of emotion, okay? Because that's just part of the process of processing, okay? And allowing yourself and allowing that emotion to flow through you in those moments is not, don't beat yourself up about that. It's actually healthy for you to allow that. It's releasing some of that, a lot of that built up anxiety and pressure that probably have been feeling for a long time. And the other thing is, again, there are all the experiences with your husband have not been bad. So there are going to be flashes of moments when you recall having a good time and a good moment, and that can be tearfully sad also. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so it's
for
just,
sure.
Yeah, it's really part of it, and it's just a healthy part for you to express yourself in that way. I get it. You don't want to feel like you need to do that all the time and for hours at a time. But I mean, considering what you have shared, that, in your past relationship, how you really weren't able to really hold yourself up, and it really affected you very heavily. You are showing up very differently this time, I do feel like it's because you do have tools to help you deal with these moments in the most healthy way you can. And I also feel like, how far along are you in the program now?
Well, I'm still in the first phase. I'm finishing lesson 2. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going super fast with it, but I'm taking my time and really trying to do it thoroughly when I'm doing the assignments and everything. But yeah, so.
Yeah. So, I mean, from the module, the first phase, which is all about yourself pretty much, what ahas and, were you able to pull from that with respect to, because it sounds like whatever you've revealed to yourself, you are aware, and you're actually working on that part of yourself, because you were able to actually show up and be as big as you were for this situation. So
yeah, I think, one of the things that I repeat to myself a lot, just out loud or in my head or whatever, is just the idea of showing up as the person that I want to be in a relationship, even if I don't feel like I'm there yet, and I'm still practicing that, like showing up as the person that I want to be. And that's,
so how do you do that, Sarah? How do you actually, like, and because I'm curious, and I think it would be good for people to hear also, like, because of that was such a big moment, and you were actually able to show up very differently in that moment. What were you thinking about in that moment? Were you thinking about the vision of yourself and that person? Is that what you were thinking about in that moment?
Oh gosh, I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, I think I was surprised, at least right afterward. I was definitely surprised that I didn't get choked up. Like, I wasn't feeling like I was getting choked up and like I was gonna cry and I better hide it, like holding it back. Like, I actually didn't feel like that at all. I felt like it wasn't, I mean, I guess, I think a lot of it is just having the confidence in myself versus not having that self-esteem and confidence before, where it was like believing that I am going to be okay. But I also, I'm also have hope that we can get back together in like a new relationship at some point, a new marriage. But I mean, he's in a different spot than I am with that. But yeah, I think I was just feeling more confident. Like I sleep for about 6 hours a night when I'm sleeping. Like I have my Bluetooth like headband thing in, and I listen to sleep hypnosis about like self-esteem and confidence. And awesome. I know that works if you're consistent with it.
Oh yeah.
And I do feel like that's made a big impact, because I wake up and I'm like, hey, I'm okay. And this is so weird because I shouldn't be, is sort of the narrative. Like, I shouldn't.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you're doing that every day, whether you feel like it's not working or not, or you feel like it's working or not, I know it is, because I know how powerful hypnosis is. And it's great that you are waking up after you're sleeping feeling that way. And I mean, like, to hear you say, yeah, I feel great, but I shouldn't be, right? And I'm just like, yeah, but that's why you're doing it, and you should be. You know, you deserve to feel good every day, you know, in spite of, and I know the sadness around everything that you're dealing with, but the only way that you're going to helpfully move through this is that you do feel good, that you are, your esteem is well in place for yourself, because you know, it's up to you how everything really opens up and shapes up in your life. That's your, it is your responsibility about that, you know. So trying to create the most optimistic and positive outlook you can is very important, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think you're doing a really, really good job. I think that's really powerful. So what is this sleep band you said you use?
Yeah, it's well, I got it on Amazon. I'll have to post it in the group, but it's like a thick headband, but it like covers your ears, just like almost like something you would wear in the wintertime. But it's got like these soft Bluetooth headphones on this that kind of go over your ears, so that if you're like a side sleeper like me, like you can sleep with them in or with it on, and it doesn't, you know, it's not uncomfortable.
Okay,
and so
awesome.
yeah, I have a Spotify playlist with sleep hypnosis that it's about 6 hours long, and I just turn it on when I go to sleep. And then, you know, so occasionally I wake up and it's playing, but like I just go right back to sleep or whatever. And I'm like, you know, I'm convinced it's doing something while I'm sleeping because I feel okay.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
It's like $20 and it works really well. So every night I have 2 different playlists that I use, but they're pretty much all just like confidence, self-esteem, codependency, letting go, acceptance, like all, they're like, yeah, a bunch of different ones sort of in a row, I guess, that I've been using. And I've never really listened to them because I'm sleeping. I don't really know what for all I know, they're saying, you know, I don't, they could be, I don't know, but yeah, because I'm not awake, but it's doing something for me. All of this is because every day I'm doing something, like whether it's like I'm in one of these group calls, or I'm on with Monika, or I'm posting in the group, or I'm doing some of the lesson plan stuff, or I'm doing like meditation, tapping, like every single day I'm doing something that's supporting me, you know, me showing up as like this different person that awesome. I want to be. And I think that's the only way, because consistency has not been my friend in the past.
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, that's fabulous. That's really good. So I have a question. Your husband's name again? What's his name again?
Mike.
Mike. When is he supposed to leave the dog with you?
October 21st.
October 21st. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the agreement around, I guess, communication thus far?
Well, we haven't really had an agreement. It's actually, well, we've been in couples counseling with this woman for like a year virtually, and we had our last session yesterday. And again, my goal was sort of just to be like, you know, convey the fact that I'm okay. And he looked like he was okay. And she asked about communication. And I mean, Mike, except for today so far, Mike's been pretty much calling me every day, but it's not like, how are you? What are you doing? It's not like he's trying to chit chat. It's usually something related to like, he switched like all of our finances, like we switched them to be completely separate. And he had like 2 days ago, it was about, he was switching the cell phone carrier. And so like he had to have the account number and he didn't know the login and stuff. And it's been up to this point, like logistical stuff, but like, I don't know, stuff he could have asked me in a text, but he didn't, you know? And so that was interesting. But I mean, no, I'm not having any problems not communicating with him. And we'll see. I think today might be the first day that we actually don't communicate with each other. But we'll see. I mean, we don't have like a rule or a boundary, but I think we're both pretty much on the same page that it's like right now, less is better.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I mean, yeah. he needs to heal. He's got a lot of healing to do from this marriage that he just couldn't do when we were living together. Lots of like different things that he couldn't move past that. I hope that he's able to take this time and start to move past some of those things, because he couldn't do it when we were here. But yeah, no, I mean, we're not really communicating. And then yesterday he called me. Well, we are, but not. But he called me twice yesterday, and I was like kind of annoyed that I didn't answer, and I let it go to voicemail. And then it was a question, and I was able to just respond, like answer his question in a text, which I thought was healthy, because I just like, I didn't want to answer the phone. I didn't want to call him back, because I don't know. I didn't feel like it was, to me, it's like, you know, you left me. Like, I'm not just going to be available at your beck and call anymore. Like, I don't know. That's kind of just how I felt about that. So
you kind of are establishing what you would consider for yourself a healthy boundary.
Yeah, I think so. But what's surprising is that this would normally be, he's the boundary setter in this marriage and always has been. Yeah. And I'm the one who just doesn't like them and tries to break them. So I think it's different for me to sort of be holding this line like that, but it's also, I mean, it's healthy, and I get that.
The other part you have to consider though, Sarah, about all of this is, remember, you know, your job, I say your job, what I mean is the idea of you joining this program is so that you could understand and see where you weren't so effective in the relationship. Okay. You awakening to those things about yourself and those aspects of yourself, and then working on that, you're not going to be the same person.
Right.
So your ability to, if you were a person who was boundaryless, right, you know, and the more healthier relationship you build with yourself, you're going to start to have boundaries, because that's kind of part of creating the healthy character that you want to be going forward, right? And so it's kind of part of your vision that, you know what, if I was a person who used to just bulldoze through boundaries, anybody's, right? Because I just want it my way. And now I'm establishing firm boundaries with myself, that I don't do that, right? That's a practice in and of itself. And then that also keenly makes you aware of other people's boundaries and how to respect those too, right? So I think it's healthy that, you know, you're moving into a healthy place, and it sounds like it's kind of formulating organically with you, that you're recognizing, I don't want to just be available, you know, and it's not that you're mad at Mike, but it's just like, well, he chose this. And so just being able to reach out to me, it's like, well, it doesn't work that way, because that was the way it was when we were here, you know, or you were here. So it's like, and it's kind of better. It sounds like it's better for you right now to establish that boundary for yourself, so that you can healthily continue to do the work on yourself also, you know, without interruption, you know. But I just asked that question about, you know, when two things, when he would bring the dog, because I wanted you to be equally as prepared as you were this time, that next instance, so that you can show up and be just as big a girl as you were this last go around. I want that to happen again for you. So, and the other thing that I don't want you to become surprised about is the more you mature over these next months, and Mike is witnessing that, you're going to see him respond differently to you. He is going to be pretty shocked, okay, if he's been just really accustomed and used to you just either going after him and just really bulldozing boundaries, and all of a sudden you're just like, he's going to be sitting there trying to figure out, what the hell is she doing? What is she really doing? How is she doing this, right? Because I'm seeing a different person. And so the thing around Monika, I think, is really a good point that she made about you not necessarily having to say to Mike, we're going to be together, you know, because that does feel controlling, right? It is, right? It could feel you know, like somebody's being a little bit of a psychopath when they just are demanding and saying, this is going to happen this way. But through your actions and you showing up with the level of maturity that you're progressing into, and him seeing that consistently, that idea may even start to formulate for himself, because he's never witnessed you be this way.
Right.
Right. And so there may be something that would trigger that. You don't know. You never know. We've seen this happen with couples, you know, that somebody moves into a level of maturity about themselves, and they do it, they make it a practice, and they do it so consistently that their partner is just like, wow, I'm not blown away by what I'm witnessing now. You know, I just never thought I would ever see this day that, you know, you would do this and be this kind of person, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like encouraging to me when I hear that response from him, just that little response, and however you want to take it. We don't really know what he was thinking.
Right. Yeah.
My whole point is that it's encouraging for you to witness that and feel the way that you feel, because it is what you have been wanting to show Mike anyway. It's who you want it to be, and it's what experience of you that he's actually wanted to have, and you actually wanted to have that with him. And so I think, you know, just giving him that now, and just focusing on these interactions and holding your own in that way anytime you guys do interact, I think is just, if anything, it's a gift to Mike.
Yeah.
You know, but the bigger gift is that, you know, for you, that he gets to see you transform and change into a really awesome person.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you know, I mean, the last, you know, month, 6 weeks have been weird. There's been, you know, he has you know, he's got trauma from childhood, and I don't know much about it. He doesn't talk, he goes to therapy, and he's been very consistent with his therapist, like every week for like 3 years. And he's been dealing with it. And he actually, in fact, was the person who was like growing and changing long before I ever started to feel like I needed to. And so, you know, that created a lot of distance in our marriage. I think that sort of was a catalyst of like us kind of growing apart. Was he was moving forward and I wasn't, because I was just sort of like the same person, but he was changing, and I wanted to keep up with him. I wanted to do things, but like I didn't know, I guess I didn't know how. I didn't have the tools to do it. You know, up until about like, I mean, I don't think he'll ever listen to this, but I mean, I guess you never know, but it's not any secret. It's almost like for the last 2 years, Mike had already made sort of like the decision that he didn't maybe really want to be with me, or he didn't want to be married. And it's been like this very gradual, like he's a social worker. He's always all about putting everyone else before him and everyone else's needs before his own needs. And I tend to be like a manipulative person who, if I want something, I want it now. And if I don't get it, then I'm going to stomp. Well, not literally, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to get what I want, because I think it's the best way and nobody else knows better than I do. And so like you have someone who on one hand never said no to me, and then me who always took advantage of that because I could. And my parents, I was the same way with my parents. They let me do whatever I wanted after a little bit of whining. You know, it's like this perfect storm of no boundaries, and everybody, like him feeling like he wasn't having any of his needs met, because it was always about meeting my needs. And there was like this gradual taking away of stuff. And when I mean taking away of stuff, it was like right after we got married and I got diagnosed with cancer, like he got like this tattoo on his arm of like, was like my initials, and it had like a symbol from like our wedding song. And he got that like covered up by something else like 2 years ago, but the way that he always said it was like, well, I always wanted to get like this sleeve tattoo, and I'm gonna transfer that tattoo to like over my heart, like on my chest or whatever. And I kind of like, I was like, oh, I don't know, you're covering up. But then I was like, but if he's transferring it, like that's kind of romantic. It's gonna be on his chest. And so after a while, like I got used to the idea, and so then it happened. But then he never got the new one. And then there was just like little things here and there, like. Sure. Just like little separations of like he, that he just kind of kept sort of like taking little bits away from me, and then I would get used to it, and then it'd be like the next little bit, and then I'd be mad at first, but then I'd get used to it. And so he was
it's not uncommon for people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, make once they get to a certain point in place, they don't always just, everyone just doesn't go, you know what? I've reached my wits end, whatever. Everybody just doesn't come and just spill it out. Some people are holding on to hope.
Mm-hmm.
That might be why they don't say anything. Some people are just, and they're living in such resentment that they don't feel like they owe it to you to say anything. They just want to make a gradual escape, So it just depends on the individual, and depends on, really, again, we're talking about child states and their upbringing, and mm-hmm. what was modeled for them in terms of how to deal with certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
This is not to put Mike out there in any kind of way. I don't know his background or anything. I think you shared a little bit about mm-hmm. him a little with respect to his family, but I dare say that there has been something that he's witnessed mm-hmm. that, for him, made him think that was really kind of the best way to deal with this, right?
Yeah.
And I, I would have to have a conversation with him to see what his experience was like in his childhood and that kind of thing, and mm-hmm. parents, relationship together, and with him, what that looked like and everything. So, but it's not unusual that people kind of prepare themselves to make their move, and sometimes it's we sit and we go, but it's interesting that now you brought up the tattoo and him covering that up, and mm-hmm. you were thinking you're saying like that was 2 years ago. If you mm-hmm. really think about it, was he doing anything prior to that?
Probably something little,
so
his background is really one where he just never feels worthy, like, of love and affection. And like, his dad left when he was young, and he had a shitty stepdad who was abusive, and like, he does struggle with that. It's like feeling like he's worthy of something good to happen to him. And in our own therapy sessions together, he would say things like, I would be like, man, if you're so miserable, why are you in this marriage? And he would say stuff like, because I feel like I have to serve this sentence, like it's jail. And it's like, man, if that's how you feel, like that's like really sad. Like you're in this because it makes you miserable, and that's how you think you need to feel. So it's tough. I mean, he's done a lot of work, but
but just based on what you just said, it sounds like that, to even sit and subject yourself to the idea that your marriage is a sentence and you have to stay in it and just be in it in that way, and not be able to really get to a point in place where you could actually reframe and start mm-hmm. working on changing that, but it sounds like there's a level of powerlessness there. It's almost like a victim,
Oh yeah. And I think, and he's been really, like, he's done a good job of finally drawing this hard line for maybe like the last 6 or 8 weeks, where he's like, okay, I'm moving out. We are going to be getting a divorce at some point, but like, I need to stay on his health insurance for right now. So he won't do it until I get all that squared away. We're destroying the embryos that we had. I mean, well, not yet, but like, he's done his part, gotten the form signed and notarized and stuff, and then I would just have to do my part. But like, he's been drawing that hard line of like, he's not giving me the hope anymore that he kind of used to. Like, he would say things like, I feel like we're just not right for each other right now. And like, the right now is what I would focus on and be like, oh, well, then you mean like later on, and he, finally he just put his foot down, was like, we're not going to be together. We're not together now. We will get a divorce whenever you have your health insurance squared away. And that's it. And he did. He's following through on all these things, which I think is good. Monika was like, he's got to honor himself by moving out. Like, we're not going to prevent that from happening. I think that that's good. Yeah. And he does have so many of those, like, resentment is like the huge thing where he just can't get past some certain things that have happened. And I think the only way that he can is if he's on his own for a while and is able to heal. So I think it's good, but I do, I still want the marriage to work out, but I'm all about going slow and like, doing our own work and then coming together and then spending a little time together here and there and see how it goes. And then like, so that's where I'm at, but I just, it's not wise to apparently share that with him right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You just want to keep the focus on yourself and to continue to just, mature and develop and grow within yourself, and let that be his experience anytime he sees you.
Yeah.
There's no words are going to be able to solidify anything with him in terms of him believing that you have changed or any of those things, right? It's something that he's going to have to witness for himself.
Yeah. A lot of it is just like, he doesn't believe half the things that come out of my mouth. And so even if I'm like even if I'm very sincere and like, coming from my heart, it kind of just like goes through him. Like, it doesn't mean anything to him because he's
what you're dealing with is, his lens right now.
Right.
His lens, if I were to take these glasses, his lens is just really muddied up right now with, things like resentment and, some pain, some anger, some anxiety. It's got all that stuff on it right now. So he's not going to, I won't say never, he's not going to be able to see anything clearly right now and be able to witness anything that clearly of you, but there are nuances that he will not be able to just, say, okay, I didn't just have that experience, for example, where Sarah, I picked something up or I dropped something off and she responded very differently. He's not going to be able to just say that didn't happen. She didn't do something that that was surprising. He's not going to be able to just discount that, right?
Right.
And that's why I said him witnessing you in these ways is your most powerful stance, your most powerful stand around what it is you do want to create, because as long as you're able to show the person who you want to be, could be, and that continues to be his experience, whether he chooses to change his mind or not, it's on him. He still has work to do. Right? So, I mean, that's important too, and like you said, he was doing work and, you felt like maybe he kind of got ahead of you a bit, which led to some separation. And ultimately, he was sitting in so much resentment, he felt like he needed to do this for himself. Mm-hmm. But the other part of this that I'm hearing is, like you said, if he's been giving, and I'm not just talking about to you, but this has just been who he's shown up in being. And he's never felt like he has been receiving anything. Mm-hmm. It's why you experience that characterological shift from him being, oh, it looks like he's, at least expressing and giving me some hope, to this raw thing where he's just, because it's hard to sit in between those two powers when you're only accustomed to one. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You almost have to talk yourself into being this person so that you can do this for you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. It's kind of like he's standing up for himself for a change. And I think that's the part where Monika was saying it's important that he do this for himself, right? And so you can have compassion for him, around that, Yeah. And like I said, the greatest gift to both of you, though, is that you're just showing up as the better version of yourself each day, and he gets to witness, and anytime he's around, you have that experience of you, you know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like, how does it work? I mean, like, he's gonna, he drops the dog off, 10 minutes, right? And then a week later picks the dog up, and there's like 10 minutes. It's like, how much of an impact can I make in those short periods of time?
Don't think about it. Don't think about it from that aspect. Don't think about it. Don't go there. Stay within the parameters of you just focusing on yourself, not trying to make an impact.
Yeah.
You're going to have that impact just by showing up in the way that you're showing up. Don't, if you're waiting on a response, if you're waiting on him to turn around and wink his eye and be like, I see you change. No, it's not going to happen that way. It doesn't work. But I don't even want you focusing on that part in terms of like trying to influence, impact, all those things. This impact and influence should be all about you.
Right.
Because this is for your betterment, right? And as long as you stay focused on yourself, it's when we lose focus on ourselves that we start, getting into dangerous territory. So as long as you can keep the eyes on yourself, you'll be doing just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a really good point. Like, yeah, it's like, what kind of impact can I make? I get it. Like, it's, and that's where I get swallowed up. I do tend to be sort of like, I just very codependent, where in the past, I've been where it's my mood is dependent on how the relationship was going. And, I can't live without you sort of thing. And it's, it makes me feel pathetic and desperate. And that's not who I want to be.
That's not who you are, Sarah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not who you are. Remember the words we say, and we want to be really careful, right? So that's not who you are.
And that just, right, exactly. And like me saying, like, making an impact, and there's a little bit of like, that's the control thing. I think that comes in, like, Sarah controlled everything in the past. Right. I mean, our wedding was like, there was so much about it that he didn't know about, that like I was spending money on that he didn't know. And then once he found out later, it was bad, and he resents me for it. There's a lot of other things too that I've just kind of done because I thought they were best at the time. And in hindsight, and I was going to get what I wanted no matter what, and regardless of what anybody else thought. And that's the way I grew up, and I don't want to be that person anymore. Like, I don't know. One of the things I told Monika was like, my little cousin got married earlier this summer, and they do a lot of times, the DJ does, like, I think they call it like the anniversary dance, where all the married couples are on the dance floor, and like, it's like, oh, if you've been married 1 year, get off the dance floor. And so finally they narrow it down to like the longest married couple. And my parents were the one who were on the longest. And my parents they're happy. They do their own thing. But like, when the DJ was like, he went up to him and was like, what's the, secret to your long marriage or whatever. My mom like grabbed the microphone and was like, you got to make the wife happy. It's all about making the wife happy. And I'm like, that sums up how I've learned to be in relationships my whole life, because my dad and my brother are super laid back, and they're married to women who like to control everything, and they're totally fine with it. My husband is not that way. But I grew up seeing that this was what it was supposed to be. The woman sort of, my mom would say things, well, you have to train them and stuff. And I used to think that was funny, but I actually really think it's super disrespectful now. And me coming from that point of view, I can totally see how that happened.
It's interesting, huh? That you got to witness that, and just actually see your mom say it,
Yeah, she said things like that in the past, but I think because, Mike and I were in that weird spot, I think it just hit me a different way. Where I was like, oh yeah, that's why. I need to either be with someone who's super laid back and doesn't take offense to anything, or, I need to change my, to be a better partner, because just the way that sound is, like, I don't know, like.
But the question about that too is that, I think about, when I think about marriage and I think about long-term marriage, I think about happiness, right? Mm-hmm. Really, really being happy, right? Yeah. Not just, staying in it just to stay in it, just to say, oh, I've been together for this many years, but really creating something that is really beautiful. And I really do enjoy myself and enjoy my partner. And I do look forward to every day spending that day with my partner, right? And so when I hear what your mom said, it's just about making one person happy. And I'm just like, so what does that mean? Like the other person gets to be, they're just miserable.
Right.
And so even when you say, my dad and my brother are just kind of laid back, and I'm like, but the question is, are they really happy? Or have they been just dealing with things,
It's the whole happy wife, happy life thing. That's like, if you make her happy, then she'll make you happy in return. But it's like, why is it that she has to be happy first in order for her to help you feel happy? I mean, I don't know. It's just, there's something weird about that saying that just
I just feel like it's important that individuals, create happiness within themselves so they can join their partners in happiness, and that's
right.
ultimately what it comes down when I think about it.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. And that's what I want. Yeah. And that's what I want. And I think that's what Mike wants. And, it's funny. I mean, we've been through so much together. But we changed. I mean, cancer changes people. It changes the person who's dealing with it. It changes the spouse who's dealing with it with them. And we both we're both so different than what we were when we first got together. And it's like, this marriage has to die 100% to be able, well, maybe 90%, because there still is like, to me, that 10% of our marriage that was like, why we got together in the first place was because we were always having fun and laughing and joking. And that was like the big thing that drew us toward each other. And like 90% of, it has to die in order for us to be able to reconnect with that 10% and then build something new as these different people that we've become.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, but I mean, but I do know that in the long run that, if we do end up getting divorced and going our separate ways for good, that like, I will be a better partner in my, in another relationship.
Yeah.
So that's something I wouldn't have been able to say like a month ago, because I would say, well, no, because I'm going to be with Mike and I can't live without him, and I can't see my life without him.
Yeah.
It's hard to see my life without him, but when I think about other boyfriends I had in the past and stuff, I mean, I said the same thing about them, and I could care less about them now, so, and we don't have kids, obviously, it's just, we don't have anything like that ties us together, but so I don't know. I don't.
And this is the thing, Sarah, too, I really want you to consider this, like, everything you're doing to make yourself, this great person, all right, all this work you're doing, it won't feel like work. Believe me, in about a year and a half, it won't feel like, oh, I'm just really pushing myself to do, be here. And this is it's big struggle for me. It won't feel like that. Mm-hmm. Like I said, once you get habituated and you get used to feeling good and it makes you feel good, right?
Yeah.
And you just want to feel good, right? Mm-hmm. You won't even be thinking about, it will be easier for you to think about being in relationship with someone the better you feel about yourself. Okay. And what I mean by that is, when I hear you talk, there are things about yourself that you haven't found favorable. You understand that, and you learn that you can't just blame yourself full on. This was modeled for you. A lot of this, what you witnessed, was modeled for you in the way that it shaped your behavior, right? And so you don't know what's going to happen, but you do know that there's a guarantee that if you keep doing this work, you're going to become the best person you can become for you. And you will be well prepared to be in any relationship, given that the person truly loves you and is able to express that towards you, right? And you can reciprocate.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's encouraging to hear you say that, you know, it's a very different story that you're saying to yourself, because I think the aspect of control is you're recognizing that is not, it's not favorable, you know, within the scope of who you are and how you've utilized that as a tool to kind of manage, you know, your life with a person, right? It wasn't done properly, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and you recognize that, but I do feel like you moving into this place where I'm almost hearing an acceptance of almost like a letting go, which is going to relieve a lot of the pressure on yourself also, because it really helps you focus on yourself and really dig into the nuances of yourself that you may not necessarily be hip to right now, because, you know, you've been distracting yourself with, oh, this might be this, this might be this. And it's just like, no, let's use that energy to focus on more of ourself and more of the being that I want to create and this person I want to create, right? Because that's the only thing that's what's going to be attractive to a person.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? That's what's going to really attract a person to you, and ultimately maybe you to them, you know, because Kelly always, you know, whenever she talks about people finding somebody else, she's always says, you know, whoever it is, you just want to make sure a person is on the growth path, just like yourself. You know what I mean? Like they're willing to do work on themselves. They're willing to, you know, when we talk about, you know, this program allows you to dig deeper than just being able to do a lot of things and have experiences where you actually learn about yourself and your childhood and its effect on you as a human, you know, an adult and everything like that. But I'm talking about someone just interested in personal growth and development altogether, so that they can fully own those parts of themselves where if they are called out for a certain behavior, right, they're not just turning around and just throwing it right back at yourself. All of this comes from that behavior, that development of behavior comes from us personally developing ourselves, right? And so I don't mean you need to go with you interested in a personal development guru or anything like that. You just want somebody who can identify with and see the healthiness of you doing that also, right? And, you know, because I mean, Kelly and I, when we met, I was, you know, into personal development, you know, trying to work on parts of myself, and Kelly was doing the same thing. That didn't mean we didn't have work to do when we got together, right? Because that collision creates a whole new dynamic, you know, and so things stem from that, and you realize, oh, I got more work to do, and Kelly realized, oh, I have more work to do, right? But the great thing is when you meet somebody of like minds around having that personal development framework, it makes things a whole lot easier, you know, to resolve issues and fix, you know, work on problems and things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always had sort of like this vision, and it's in I think my relationship vision of like Mike and I growing together, because he, you know, he's big on all of that, and he's been in therapy forever, and he's a social worker, and I've been big on it, although I haven't been able to follow through with things I didn't know how. But I always thought of us like doing it together and growing and changing together. And, you know, he wasn't there. He didn't have the trust to be able to include me in that. And and that's just a big thing. I was never viewed as like sort of like his like soft place to land at the end of a hard day. It was always just more of a source of like stress and pressure and expectations that he can never meet. And, you know, I want to show up different where it's more about creating my own happiness within myself and not depending on another person. And I do get sucked into that when I get into a relationship. Like before a new relationship, like I'm all good and I'm like doing my own thing. And then as soon, you know, the second that I start to get serious with somebody, it's like, you know, my friends don't hear from me, and like, I don't know. And that's just what I don't want, because it's not, you know, it's always ends up in the same pattern. So yeah, I know like the self-esteem work and confidence work and hypnosis, meditation stuff that I've been doing, I think really has been helping with that, that aspect for sure.
And what do you really like to do also, Sarah? You know, like hobby wise or just like personal interest? I mean, what's something that you really enjoy
I
doing?
like to do, well, yeah, I don't know. I used to be so busy. I didn't like have any hobbies, but I mean, I like to do what any girl, I mean, I like to go out with my friends and go have some drinks and dinner and, you know, and laugh and like, you know, all that stuff. And I like to, I mean, I like to write, like I do a lot of journaling, but I've kind of always wanted to write my own book. And it's been something that's on my mind a lot more lately is writing a book. And that's something that's sort of always been on my bucket list. Yeah. And I also just want to like, yeah, I mean, I don't need, like, as far as hobbies go, that one's tough because I've never really given myself the time to have too many of them. But yeah, I want to write more for sure.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
I just asked that question because when you're talking about, you know, moving from that autonomy and then finding yourself when you get in relationship, moving into codependency, a lot of that, you know, we kind of make the person our personal interest, right? And I'm just saying, so if you have things that you are interested in prior to meeting a person, right? And these are things that you do for yourself, right? It may help you also deal with that aspect of yourself where that codependency marker kind of starts to show up a little bit, and you're just like, I really like this is, you know, I can do this and be okay and not feel like I need to, I need this person around all the time, or however it shows up dysfunctionally is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think like you taking an interest in yourself and just establishing some things that with you that you can do by yourself that interest you will kind of help you deal with that part of yourself too. It's just, you know, I feel like when I hear people say this thing around codependency, and I know it can stem from different things, but when I hear people talk about that aspect of themselves, it's I feel like a lot of times we're just like not checking in with ourselves and digging ourselves to a point where it's just like, what really, like really figuring out what makes you tick and what makes you happy. You know what I mean? And it's just like, so if I don't want to take the time to do that, let me do this by putting my attention and focus on something else. But the only problem with that is if you're relying on that to make you happy, that's not solid. That's not a thing that you can rely on 100% of the time, right?
Right.
You can only do that with yourself, but you have to learn how to create that energy within yourself and get to know yourself that way, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's why I asked. So I mean, like, if you're interested in writing, I would like really think about, you know, getting into that.
Yeah.
Really understanding that about yourself.
I have sort of an outline of something that I want to write, and that it could turn, I don't know, it could turn into something bigger, and I don't know, but we'll see. I think that that's something this weekend I was I need to focus more on some of the lessons in lesson 2 or lesson 3 also, and then and just organizing, because when he moved out, this is like our second bedroom. He uses sort of like his video game room, whatever. And I moved all of my work stuff, my office stuff and everything in here. And I have like this great space to like think and to work and to type and to write. And like, I didn't have that. I was like cramped in our bedroom before. And I really want to take advantage of the space that I have. So yeah.
That's good.
I'm feeling really hopeful. I mean, just comparatively from in the past, like things are good. Like I'm okay, and I'm gonna be okay. And I'm gonna let the sadness sort of wash over me when it needs to. You know, I have friends who are on call, like for me, whenever I need to talk. And my mother, of course. But yeah, so I'm really utilizing all the tools, I feel like. So
just make sure you keep good friends around you, like, you know, listeners, not, you know, people who are just want to give you advice, you know, because
yeah,
they're, you know what I mean? It's like really important that you surround yourself with level-headed people who can understand your situation and can be that ear, and provide support in that way, not try to give you advice.
yeah, that's I do avoid my mom sometimes for that reason. But no, I mean, I have a couple others that are good for that. That I have to talk to whenever I want to. And I've been doing lunches with them more often lately and stuff, and just trying to get out of the house more. Yeah, I think just, you know, making sure that I'm utilizing all the supports and doing something every day that's like, you know, bettering myself toward the person that I want to be. So I feel like this is the time it's actually going to happen versus the time that I just always talk about it and then it drops off after like a month. I'm pretty psyched up about it. And I think that, you know, part of the reason is that I have the literal physical and mental space to do it. Even though I didn't want Mike to move out at first, like I think it honestly could have, it's the best thing that could have happened to allow me the space to like do it without having the distraction of him there and us constantly triggering each other, which is all we ever did. So
yeah, that's a great reframe. That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's really good.
So I don't know, I don't really have any other questions or anything. Like, this is a good talk. I've been coming to everything, like all 3 calls every single week pretty much. So trying to do it every day and learn something. And I learned, you know, with Gloria, I learned just listening to her today was good because I mean, and I don't know her situation, but from the respective sort of like, you know, I heard my husband say similar things to me, like, you know, just not wanting to be affectionate with me because of everything that went down, and like like helping to hear like sort of the other side of it and how it feels. And I mean, I learned something from everybody every single time I'm on a call. So
that's good. That's what it's for. And I'm really glad you're utilizing it as a resource to really help you too. Because I mean, it's important. Because this work it's a lot of work in and of itself, but to hear feedback and get people's feedback, because you know it doesn't go without. And I use this word loosely, this term struggle. And what I mean by that is in the beginning, sometimes it's difficult to implement some of these things as seamlessly as we'd like, and it just takes practice. You know? But to hear that from other people, witnessing where they were when they started and to see where they've changed and where they are in 3 months is huge for a lot of people. Just being able to hear those stories is powerful.
Yeah, for sure. So
so keep up the great work. You sound like you're really doing awesome, and continue to keep doing what you're doing, because it sounds like it's working. Okay.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. So you guys have a good weekend. Say bye to Kelly.
I will. Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.